Someone gave my friend Douglas some throwing knives as a joke, and he left them at the farm. But oddly, I've been finding that it's actually quite soothing to my nervous system to spend a couple minutes a day throwing knives. So since I've come to the farm, I've had to learn how to carefully and properly use a lot of sharp things that I didn't use much before, like table saws and chainsaws and chop knives and sickles. And so I was thinking the other day about kind of the archetype of that, the archetype of sharp objects. And what you see pretty much throughout the world in different cultures is that sharp objects usually represent wisdom, the wisdom of discernment. We see this in St. Michael, right, with his flaming sword. In the East, we have another flaming sword in the sword of Manjushri. And in the Tibetan monasteries, you hear the young monks oftentimes, because they have to study so much and memorize so much, they oftentimes repeat the seed syllable of Manjushri because it's thought that the more you repeat that syllable, the sharper your brain will be. So you hear them throughout the monastery going dee 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 dee. So I was thinking about wisdom and hindrances to wisdom. Of course, one of the hindrances to wisdom is emotional immaturity. And I was thinking about emotional immaturity and an aspect of emotional maturity. And one aspect of emotional maturity is the ability to regulate your own emotional state. So the opposite of that is needing or using other people to regulate your own emotional state. What do I mean by that? I just mean when you're angry or when you're upset, drawing other people into that, into your drama, right? Drawing other people into your angst as a way of regulating that. Another way of saying that is using people to mitigate our own anxiety. And trauma specialist and therapist Resmaa Menakem says it this way. He says, all adults need to learn how to soothe and anchor themselves rather than expect or demand that others soothe them, right? That all adults, that we need to learn, part of wisdom and part of emotional maturation is learning how to soothe and anchor ourselves rather than expect or demand that others soothe us. And I was just thinking about this in my own life and how I use other people to mitigate my own emotions. So these are a kind of incense. You burn these. And if you've ever burned sweetgrass, it's a really similar fragrance, but lavender when it burns is exquisite. And then we wrap them in rose petals just for aesthetics. But I've learned recently that rose petals are edible. All rose petals are edible. I didn't quite know that. Not only are they edible, they're actually delicious. But you can't use pesticides or anything like that. So often we don't want to look at our shortcomings for understandable reasons. We don't want to feel bad about ourselves. But just consider for a moment the downfall of that. I think a great example of that is, what's the difference between somebody who golfs every day or plays guitar every day or something and really doesn't improve much versus somebody who achieves a kind of excellence like Tiger Woods? You know, when Tiger Woods goes out to golf, he's actually looking for the places of weakness in his game. I mean, he's looking for those. He's not trying to avoid that. He's not trying to just feel good about his game. He's actually looking for the places of weakness. And because of that, he moves into greater excellence. So one aspect of wisdom is an ability for self-critique that doesn't relate to low self-esteem. It's just acknowledging that we're on a path And that path is to try to achieve greater excellence and clarity of thought. So if we keep that in mind, come back to this idea of using other people, there's two ways of looking at it. There's one way to just feel bad about yourself, but there's another way, and a much more interesting way, of realizing that those moments that we're kind of pawning off our discomfort onto other people, or pulling them into it, are actually missed opportunities. And the more we become aware of that, the more that those opportunities will actually be transformed for us. Dr. Brene Brown, she puts it this way. She says, we cannot numb selectively. We cannot numb selectively. What does that mean? That means if you want to numb the pain, you're also going to numb the capacity for wisdom. You're going to numb the capacity for beauty. You cannot numb selectively. And that's just a choice I think each of us have to make at some point. Are we willing to lean into the discomfort? Are we willing to be present with the arising of unpleasant experiences? And if we are, what also we get, the other gift we get with that, is the ability to experience deeper feelings of wholeness, deeper experiences of beauty, of connection. So if you look closely, the blade has a serrated edge. And what you want to do is you want to kind of grab a bundle in your hands and then give a nice, quick, sawing motion. It's a great sound. And that helps the plant, prunes the plant down, and gives you just these beautiful bundles. This plant is just gorgeous. And the smell is just unbelievable right now. I remember hearing a doctor interviewed who wrote a book on death and dying. And he said something great. He said, I reserve the right to freak out at the moment of death. I reserve the right. And here's the guy, he wrote the book on it. And he's saying, listen, even though I wrote the book, I still am I still have the right to freak out. So it's not that we're going to succeed at this idea of leaning into discomfort. But I think what can happen is as we change our relationship with discomfort, the more we remember that as discomfort arises, that this is actually the medicine we seek. This is what we've been waiting for. The more we'll actually lean into that opportunity. But absolutely, I will still blame other people for stuff that they shouldn't be blamed for, when I'm unable to hold it myself. And like Tiger Woods on the golf course, not hiding from that, not ignoring that or denying that. And that's really another aspect of humility, is realizing that, oh, I'm trying to actually improve my game. And so I need to look at the places where I am failing with joyful equanimity.